Hey, I just got back from lunch. Did you finish that report yet?
Well, not exactly. Still working on it. I'm not finished just yet. I got a little sidetracked, but I will get them to you first thing this afternoon.
It is first thing this afternoon.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but I mean, I am working on
But
it. I'll have,
what do you mean that the report isn't finished yet?
I'm still in the process of working on it. I've just been a little distracted.
Distracted. Our meeting starts in an hour.
I can have it.
No. What were you doing? Were you listening to another hunting podcast again? I swear, I give the staff in this office the freedom to do whatever they want to do as long as they meet a deadline. That is the first bullet underneath your job description. Pays attention to detail and deadlines. And deadlines. Dude, are you even listening to me right now?
Welcome to episode 151 of the Whitetail Distraction Podcast. My name's Austin, and joining me on a beautiful summer night, Charles Hedlund. How you doing, buddy?
It doesn't feel like summer, my friend.
It
feels
does.
like a
Almost
fall
feels like
night.
fall, I know.
I got some scree gear on right now.
Oh,
Yeah, buddy.
you do piece of...
I sure did.
Oh,
I
buddy.
sure did. And I'm like the scree Santa Claus in a way.
I like it. I like it.
Maybe I need to get hired on at scree for being Santa Claus.
Listen, idea just popped into my brain.
Okay,
Holiday episode. You wear a Santa suit.
I can do that. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. I have the suit. You know I do.
know you do.
Don't tell your daughters. But,
Oh,
I
my.
have been playing Santa Claus for the last few years.
Yeah.
Just don't tell. Okay.
We'll have to get with our Screeple.
Yeah.
And
Make
work it
something
out.
happen. Yeah, that'll be freaking awesome.
That would be cool.
Well, I just got back from Texas, so this is like the greatest weather I've ever experienced.
Compared to down there.
Oh my God, yes. Dude, 109 every single day.
That's bananas, dude.
Every day, nonstop. In the mornings when we woke up, that was the coolest time. It was 88 degrees. That was the coolest it got the whole trip. And at 11 p.m., 10 p.m., it was 102.
Oh, my.
And the wind was blowing like crazy, but it didn't help. It was worse.
It was
made
just hot air.
It was hot air. It was like somebody was following you around with a hairdryer and blowing hot air on you the whole time.
It sounds lovely.
It was miserable. I don't understand how people live in that and enjoy their lives.
That's why we're from the north.
You're right. You're damn right. And I appreciate being from North. Actually, so Locke, I was down there working with Locke Wheeler, who's been on the episode. Actually, been on the show twice now.
Yeah.
And I was down there working with him at the scree booth at the show in Fort Worth, Texas. And he sent me a picture the other day of his temperature from where he's from in Louisiana. And it was
He's
still,
used to it.
dude, it was like 102.
Oh, goodness.
And the other guy I was working with, Tyson Harris, who's up in Missouri, he sent a picture and his was like 72. And he was like, I love the weather up here. And then I had to join in and I sent him a picture. Ours was like 68.
Beautiful.
I was like, this is the best thing I've ever had. I've been missing this.
I'm surprised you didn't get punched through the phone.
Dude, I think I did.
Oh, man.
And we may actually have lost our scree partnership message. Just so you know.
Thanks, buddy.
You're welcome.
Unreal, man. That's good, though.
It was
good
a fun
show.
It was a great show. It was the last show that Scree's doing of the year, so we got to sell some of the inventory that was actually on hand,
Very cool.
which I know you know, was crazy in Pennsylvania. They cut way back.
They would have had to.
Yeah, I mean there
It was
just
too much.
too much
Yeah.
stuff, and they were sick and tired of dragging all that stuff around to every single show. So they kind of dropped it down to where they had one of everything for everyone to try.
Nice.
And we were running our normal online sale on the show Friday night. And then Saturday, everything went back to retail.
Very cool.
So we were offering like 20% off, 30% off, whatever, depending on what you got. The
Yeah.
show. And we sold a little bit Friday, a little bit Saturday. And then Sunday rolled around, like we were doing 40% off everything in the booth.
Madhouse.
It was madness. The first guy that walked into the booth bought an entire set of the Guardian series.
Oh,
the
yeah.
bibs, the jacket, and a puffy jacket.
Is he in Texas?
I don't know where he was from,
I hope not.
but it was a gift to his kids.
Very cool.
Yeah, and we literally pulled one of the jackets down off the mannequin just to give it to him because he wanted a medium. And, I don't know. Maybe my other son, if he doesn't fit this, it'll just go to me. And you could tell he was trying all this stuff
Oh,
off, and
yeah.
He was just like, he was a Sitka guy, like full on Sitka.
Come to the dark side.
And he's like trying this stuff on. He's like, I kind of really like this jacket. He's like, I'm going to buy it for my son, but if it doesn't fit him, it's mine.
You sure you don't want a large?
Yeah, he did. He ended up, I think, buying a large, the puffy jacket, the ptarmigan. So he ended up buying, like, right off the rip, dude, a huge setup.
That's awesome.
40% off. He made a killing deal. And then we, I had some orders for you, some other buddies of ours that I was able to run and get you guys some stuff. And I got to mail out a few orders. But I'm glad I was able to get my hands on these, too, because I ended up buying the same pair of pants you bought, the hard scrabble in the brown.
Yeah, the ash brown.
Just sick. I'm wearing the shirt I bought there, the
And the
150.
pants.
Yeah, and the pants. I was going all out tonight. I was like, man, I got to show Austin everything I got there. I got the Kaibab 150 short sleeve. I got the gunner vest,
Yeah.
which I really, really like that.
I have one. I wore it all gun season last year, man.
And that's where I'm like, dude, I need a legitimate vest for gun season
Yes.
instead of these little shitty ones that barely go on.
Yes.
I want something good. So I was like, man, I'm not going to pass up on this deal. I grabbed that. And honestly, I kind of forgot about it until some guy came into the booth, was like trying them on, and he walked away and left. And I was like, well, he's not getting the 2X because that's coming home with me.
With me.
And I grabbed it out of the booth. I'm also wearing the Scree socks right now.
How are they? I don't have a pair.
I didn't either. These are my first pair. I love them. They're so comfortable.
So you're saying I'm missing out?
If you like a lightweight earlier season merino wool sock, you're missing out. They're so soft. Dude, they're so I love them. I'm glad I bought them.
On a scale from 1 to Wasatch are the perfect jammies, what are they?
I would put them right up there with the 150 quarter zip, which you know how much I cherish my zip.
I do.
They're up there.
Okay, that's a high rating.
And the Wasatch are the perfect
They're
jammies.
so good, dude.
I don't know what else I bought. I think I bought something else, but I ended up putting some money down. I couldn't pass it up.
I like it, man. I like it. Well, that was a good plug for Scree. I mean, I don't know if you want to move on. We didn't talk about partnerships, but that was the perfect plug for him anyway.
Yeah, I figured that was the kind of the plug to get into this one. And I also was mentioned, I was texting Matt Fudere when I was down there, and I'm like, dude, why is it so freaking hot in your state right now?
Yeah.
So I did get to talk to Matt a little bit. I was sad I wasn't able to see him at the show, but I did connect with him a little bit as well. And, to plug VIP archery as well, a friend of mine that I work with, he recently just bought the Combat Veterans, and he was texting me today, and he was asking me, how do these things fly? Do I have to tune my arrows? What do you do to tune your broadheads? And I said, dude, I don't tune my broadheads. He said, what do you mean? I said, they shoot perfect. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. And he was very skeptical. Like, I got this freaking bow down. And he is dialed in. He's been sending me pictures nonstop. Every day he shoots. He's been shooting for like 6 months. Every day. He loves it. He's like, I'm dialed in. He sent me a picture today, and there were 2 arrows. He sent me the front and the back of them, and they are literally touching. And he's got little lines pointing to him. One is the broadhead, and one is the field point. And he sends me the back end picture of them, and they are literally touching. And the broadhead was obviously the Combat Veteran, and his regular arrow was literally touching.
Yeah.
I said, dude, I told you they're freaking dead nuts. He's like, yeah, they're absolutely dead nuts.
Can't ask for anything better, man. We preach them for a reason.
Yep.
Baddest broadheads in the business. Go check them out. VIP Archery. They're awesome.
Absolute killers.
I agree.
Put them on your arrow and go hunt. Yeah. One less thing to worry about.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Well,
I know that took a little bit, but that was actually an update and a plug.
Yeah.
So those were both, very, relatable.
I would agree. Speaking of shooting, though, I need to shoot my shots for this week because we have a very fun competition. I wouldn't call it a competition, but a little challenge going on in our Patreon group, which the weekly challenge this week, it's an easy one.
It is.
I'm scared of some of the ones coming up, but you know what?
Boy.
Getting ready for season. I'm shooting more than I have in the past, which I'm excited about. And I'm feeling very confident going into the season, man.
Yeah.
I like it.
I think with our Patreon one-shot challenge, air quoted, because there's multiple shots most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That we've been doing, I've seen a lot of improvement in our Patreon members as well.
Absolutely.
Look at Bruce, of all people.
Bruce is coming from behind, man.
That dude started off the season and his bow, needed work, and there was things that he was just neglecting to do because he didn't have time to do it. I guarantee you, had it not been for this challenge, he would have went into the season needing all that work done.
Absolutely.
In some of the early weeks, he was putting up some bad numbers because he wasn't grouping well.
Yep.
He had issues with arrest. And, dude, the last 2 weeks, he has been
Dialed.
stellar.
Yeah, man.
Stellar.
I would agree.
Just absolutely freaking killing it. And then, even, Ron never picks up his best. He shot a perfect 50, 5 out of 5 last week for the challenge.
Yeah, man.
These dudes they're coming around. I love it. I love to see it. I mean, it's not just them, it's us too.
I think we're going to have a good little group going on this year, man, as far as getting out for the season. I'm very excited to see what comes. Guys, if you're interested, go check out our Patreon. We have several levels, all kinds of benefits to it. But this Marco Polo group and our challenge we got going on, it's super fun. Go check it out.
Yeah.
Or not.
It costs you $3 to join in on the fun. That's it. $3 a month.
That's it.
Think about what you spend $3 on every.
Yeah.
You can do that once a month. To
Absolutely.
have the most fun ever. Come on,
Skip a cup of coffee.
one day,
One day.
a month.
There you go. There you go.
Exactly.
Well, dude, we're here for a very specific reason tonight.
We are.
Why don't you get into that a little bit?
So we've decided to kind of start this series, and every other time we've tried a series other than maybe the Deer Slayer series, we've kind of started them, and then we would lose a guest, and it was like they would just kind of flake off, and unfortunately we wouldn't finish them to what our vision wanted us to. So we decided this year, because it's such a hot topic over the last few years, that saddle hunting is such an important part in what you and I both do. And a lot of our listeners and a lot of our friends have gotten into saddle hunting, that we were going to start a series based all around saddles.
Yes.
And it's not your boring, typical, if you're listening to this and you're not a saddle hunter and you're not interested, don't tune out, because I'm telling you right now, these are not your typical boring saddle episodes. They're fun.
They are.
They're all over the place, and they just happen to be with people that are behind some of these saddle companies that are very interesting people. The way they've come up, they're very obviously the ingenuity and whatnot. They have a very creative mind.
Yes.
And these people love hunting. They love what they do. They're saddle hunting because they found that saddles and the way they hunt with a saddle has improved their game and the way they like to hunt and the way they like to do things. That's how they got into it.
First and foremost, they are hunters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're just trying to improve the game and make everything better. And they're really important, for mobile hunting as it is. But if you guys are interested in saddles and trying new saddles and learning about new saddles, this is a really good series for you. We're trying to give everybody their due, give a little bit around some different companies and let them have a voice to, project what they're putting out, and what's coming in the future. And it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, I agree. I love this first one right off the rip. Was probably the first company I thought of during this, because in a way we wanted to give the little guys, and that's not really little guys, but some of the smaller, lesser in the spotlight, less smaller companies that don't have all the marketing power and money, right? We wanted to give them a voice too, and we wanted to hear from those guys, because think about it. These dudes literally built this on a passion. They obviously saw something that they wanted to improve themselves.
Yep.
And turned it into a business.
Absolutely.
And H2 Saddles is the first one I thought of when we were doing this, because it's knowing his story and getting into it on this episode, he was the guy that I was like, we have to have him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have to have him.
And you're going to hear from some bigger people too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's not, we're trying to give you guys options.
The best of both worlds.
Yeah. It's going to be a series where you're going to learn a lot, but you're also still going to get the same entertainment that our other podcasts give you. You're still going to get stories. You're going to learn why people decided saddle over tree stands.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's the same reason we've switched, right?
I would agree, my man.
We found a benefit in something, and we are passionate about it, and here we are.
Yeah. Let's bring them on. H2 Saddles.
Let's do it. All right, and we are back. We have an exciting guest on the line tonight with us. We have Mr. Heath Hart, Mr. H2 Saddles from Michigan himself. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Doing great, guys. Nice to be talking to you.
Likewise. We're so happy you took some time out of your night to spend with us.
Well, looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So this is going to be a good one. We are breaking the ice on a new mini series.
Yes.
This has been, Heath, you may not know it, but our podcast, we have had such great ideas for mini series, and it's to our own fault. We kick ourselves and we end up getting sidetracked and losing track of them. So this one we're gonna commit to. But I'm excited because Austin and I are both kind of saddle nerds. We've been hunting out of the saddle for a few years, as we mentioned to you before we jumped on. And, the first one I could think of when we talked about putting this together was H2 Saddles. And, it's going to be amazing. But before we jump all into that and go deep diving, we need to learn a little bit about you. So if you don't mind giving us kind of a quick rundown introduction of who you are, Heath, so the listeners can catch up with us.
Sure. I guess I started H2 Saddles back in 2018. So we were probably one of the originals. I think, Arrow Hunter was one of the manufacturers, and then, Tethered came out just before we did. So we were kind of one of the original three that came out with the saddle game, and it's been amazing watching the peak and the interest and the growth in the saddle industry. It's just taken off, and now it's years ago you talked to an avid hunter, and you'd mention something about saddle hunting, and they're scratching their head going, "What the hell is that?" I've never heard of it. And a lot of guys still don't know what it is. Some of the guys that got their private property and they've got their tree stand set up and they hunt the same place year after year, and every time they go out to sit, they've got their couple spots that they're going to go to. And then you talk to somebody who's a public land hunter, and I think now I would probably say the saddle hunting industry or saddle hunting method is probably surpassing any other method now, as far as the mobile hunter goes. Somebody who's going to be, walking into the woods and not really knowing where they're going to set up, or don't have anything preset. They're the ones that are going to be having a saddle around their waist, carrying some sticks in or carrying a one stick in, and walking till they find hot sign and setting up. And it's amazing method of hunting, and we're very proud that we kind of got in on the early stages and was one of the leaders in bringing the revolution to the market, I guess.
I'd say that's absolutely fair. And it's it has been absolutely mind blowing seeing the growth of the whole method, the saddle hunting method. I know when I first learned about it, I was incredibly skeptical. Charles he brought it up to me, and we talked to a few people about it, and I was so married to a lightweight stand and sticks. That was my mobile setup at the time, and he was running the same thing. And I don't know, it was kind of one of those things where I didn't trust it, I guess. And then, sitting in one for the first time and kind of seeing the method and watching some videos and getting on some of the forums and listening to some guys talk about it, it just kind of made sense.
Oh yeah. It's, not only the versatility you have, but in my mind, I think there's that whole safety factor. The first time you ever sit in a saddle, and especially the first time you're at height and you sit in that saddle, of course your butt puckers a little bit.
Definitely.
It's not
a lot.
It's not a natural feeling. You're almost like your gravity is, you're so used to standing up with that downward force of gravity right on your feet. And all of a sudden, when you're leaning out from a tree, knowing that you've got nothing but 20 feet of air between you and that ground below, putting your trust in some straps and a rope, and leaning back into that is just a very unnerving feeling. But once you learn to trust your gear, there's nothing like it. You know, at that point in time, you almost feel like you've got like there's no gravity, like you're floating in air up there, and you can move around, and everything's so smooth to move, and it's almost like a light bulb clicking once you get that.
Definitely. It's like having a superpower.
I
Become
guess.
invisible.
Yeah, sure. So to even back you up further than that, how about we'll go personal on a personal level. I want to get kind of the beginning of how you got into hunting, and, you know, did you grow up into it, or, you know, kind of explain to us, you know, where this passion came from, I guess.
I guess I started hunting back in probably 84, somewhere in there. And living in Michigan, there wasn't a huge, at least growing up, and in the hunting, you know, families that, you know, everybody was a rifle hunter. You know, that first day of rifle season was almost like a state holiday. You know, kids would be gone from school, classrooms would be half empty, because everybody's going up to hunting camp and, you know, spending that opening day in the woods. And so I kind of grew up in that mentality. I did get my first bow back in it was probably the mid 80s, something like that. So I kind of jumped into archery hunting right away, but to me, it was more another chance to get out in the woods. You know, I love being out in the woods. Michigan's very pressured. It's always been highly pressured. Lot of deer hunters. There is a lot of deer, but not a whole lot of quality deer. So the deer you saw were, you know, small bucks and a lot of does and a lot of yearlings. But to me, just being out in the woods was all worth it. You know, I think I shot my first deer back in, I guess it was probably 85, and just had a passion for it ever since. And at that point in time, it was just kind of, you know, walk out in the woods and go that way and find a stump to sit on, and you sat. And that was sat and waited. But yeah, I kept at it. I loved it. I've hunted, I've traveled and lived in, you know, Michigan, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, hunted the entire times that I lived in those other states. You know, I really loved it. And of course, saddle hunting, I didn't start saddle hunting till probably about 2016, somewhere in there. But years before that, I used to hunt in the same style of saddle hunting. I used to have one of those, it was a waist belt kind of safety harness. I think it was like a safety strap is what they called it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And that's what I used in the tree stand. And it was essentially a big belt that would go around your waist, and then you had a short tether, and then it would be connected to another strap that would go around a tree. So I'd be up in the stands, and I found myself facing the stands and leaning out with that belt around my waist. And that's kind of how I hunted. And of course, that progressed into sit drags.
Oh, yeah.
If you remember those.
Yeah.
Those were kind of the precursor to the mainstream saddle hunting. So I progressed to a sit drag and modified it to put a waist belt on there. And that was just more or less to hold me up as hold up to my waist as I walked into the woods. And then, you know, later on, I made myself a saddle to hunt out of, and met a seamstress and asked her if she could do a better job sewing, because my sewing absolutely sucked. And she made me a saddle, and I gave her kind of everything that I wanted. She actually made a couple for me. So I found something that I really liked, and some of my buddies saw it, and they sat in it, and they loved it, and they wanted one. And then all of a sudden, I, had the idea that, hey, this could work as far as selling these things. So invested in a heavy duty industrial sewing machine, and kind of the rest is history.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Pretty neat. I guess for me, as I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, where the heck did this idea all come together? And you're kind of answering that as you go along. I wondered, how close were you, that original design when you first built your first one, where does that stand compared to kind of where you're at today? Are you close to the same design, or have you made some more streamlined modifications since?
Generally, it's the same design. For the most part, I mean, there was always that, little small adjustments to get the fit right. And someplace I still got that original saddle. Never thought about getting rid of it. Of course, the original saddle that I made, it didn't have the, any molly loops or attachments. It was just your basic seatbelt webbing with a form-fitted seat between that seatbelt webbing. There wasn't any linesman's loops. It was just the bridge loop. So it was a very, very basic, rudimentary saddle. It worked great, and it was very comfortable, and I used that for probably a year before I started, making more tweaks to it and coming up with actual patterns. And then, of course, it progressed to different sizes, and we make 4 different sizes and five different colorations. So I think there's, right now 20 different variations of saddles that we offer, which is far more than I think any other manufacturer out there.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But that's our whole take. We wanted to custom fit, saddle to make sure that we've got something that's going to fit somebody the best. Let them dial in. Of course, there's been advancements when we came out with the Triad bridge. 4 years ago?
Yeah, I remember when that came
that
out.
was the first time that you had a saddle that you could actually adjust the angle on. And of course, nowadays everybody's pretty much using that same design that we came out with.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's interesting, but Austin has actually built his own saddles as well. A little fun fact, which is kind of neat.
Oh.
And I know there were some different struggles or different challenges that you faced when you built yours, Austin.
Definitely.
Heath, what were some of those early on challenges that you faced whenever you first decided? And I know you may not have mentioned it, but you do have an engineering background, so you kind of generally understand how things are made or put together, how they work in a way. But, what were some of those challenges when you were first putting that together and trying to, I guess, come up with an idea? Because in all reality, you were transitioning from a belt around your waist to a sit drag to what now is, commonly known as a saddle that is pretty well streamlined. But I guess, what did you face along that journey?
Probably the hardest hurdle to come across is getting that pattern down. I mean, I actually, had worked extensively with CAD, computer-aided drafting.
Mm-hmm.
I love CAD.
So I actually brought in a model of a torso of an ass, and try to mold a pattern to bend and shape and form fit it. We were the ones that originally came out with kind of that cupped saddle design. It's almost like a football. It's not really a expandable pleat, but it does have a pleat coming across the center of it that provides that cup shape. And that was designed specifically to match the typical buttocks of a person.
That is interesting, because when I think H2 saddles, I think of comfort. I mean, that's number one I think of when I've not sat in one, to be perfectly upfront, but if you look at any review thread when someone's asking about what is a good saddle or what is
Like
a
on
comfortable
Facebook.
yeah, H2 is always up there.
Always.
And there are multiple people saying the most comfortable saddle they've ever sat in. So
I've got guys that are, multiple purchases, and most of our business, we don't do a whole lot of advertising. Most of our advertising is really word of mouth. So we've got guys all the time that says, hey, I sat in my buddy's saddle and I absolutely love it. And I want one, to the point that, we're looking up, what size the other customer got, so we can make sure that we get them in that same size if they like that. And yeah, we got a good following. I think we are the highest rated saddle. If you look at the Facebook shops, and we're 5-star rated. All our reviews are actual customers. They're not paid advertisements. They're all true, authentic reviews from people. I think we've got more reviews than anybody. So not only the highest rating, but more reviews than any other saddle company. But we don't pay a whole lot in advertising, but what we do is we take that money that we save in advertising and, to be able to discount our prices. So I don't think anybody can touch us for the price of our saddle.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would say that's number 2 that comes to mind when I think of H2 saddles: affordability, bang for your buck. I mean, there's just, you guys are kind of killing it in that aspect. You're above the game when it comes to saddle comfort, affordability. I would say, when most people ask me what saddle, and this is kind of goes to your reviews, because like I said, I've never actually sat in one, but when most people ask me what saddle they get into, I typically send them towards you, and I say, hey, try out H2. From everything I'm hearing, they're absolutely incredible, and they're affordable. It's something you can get into on a lower end budget, be ready to go, and if you don't like it, you don't like it, but I'm pretty sure you're going to fall in love with it. So I would agree with you that your price point is really, really good.
And if you don't like it, you can always sell it for what you paid for it.
Absolutely.
It's pretty darn close, so not a high risk there.
Yeah,
Definitely.
The other thing that I think I can speak for us on, which I don't know if any other company can say it, maybe with the exception of maybe a couple. I mean, there's so many companies out there now building them, but all our saddles are essentially built by the same individual. So, our seamstress has been with us from the beginning, and she's literally made, tens of thousands of saddles. So you've got that experience every time that you're purchasing a saddle. You've got that, you got that quality. Other manufacturers that are mass producing them in a factory, that could be made by somebody who's, selling their very first saddle, and you never know.
Definitely.
You're guaranteed that you've got somebody who knows what they're doing and has done it for years. So that's a big plus that we have.
Absolutely. Well, we've talked about them a little bit. Let's get into the couple different saddles here real quick. So you got the Slingshot 2.0 and you have the Hot Shot. Can we kind of get in and break down those saddles a little bit? Maybe speak about the differences of them.
Sure. The biggest difference on those is the materials. The Hot Shot is a mesh saddle. So the advantage of that is if you're hunting in warmer climates, does allow you to breathe and you won't get as hot in it. The disadvantage of a mesh saddle is you do get some stretch in it. So you don't have that, I guess what you call the uniform support that you do on a fabric saddle. A fabric saddle that's got less stretch, your weight is basically distributed not only in those straps, but over that whole seat of a saddle. So it helps distribute your weight. Not that the Hot Shot's uncomfortable. If you sit in one for a period of time and then you sit in the other, at least me, I mean, I've sat in them for, hundreds of hours, each of them, and I can't tell a difference between them. Like I said, not that they're uncomfortable, but there is a difference you can tell.
Definitely.
The slingshot is typically what I use for the majority of my hunts, except for the early season. I do have a couple custom saddles that I'll use in early season also, which are not available on the website. They were just something that I had tried as a prototype and ended up really liking them. And who knows, maybe someday we're going to bring those to the market. But we had some, I don't know, not really struggles, but there was complications in being able to mass produce those.
Definitely.
So, it might be something that's going to be available here in the not too distant future. But for the most part, I would probably say 80% of my sits, I'm sitting in a slingshot, and I'm usually sitting in one of the original slingshots just because I can't wear the darn thing out.
Yeah, that's a good part.
I've got probably the one that I use reach for most of the time. I've probably got well over 200 sits.
Oh, wow.
In that saddle. And it doesn't have quite all the features that our saddles have now, but it's just one of those things that I guess if I ever wear it out, I'll change over to one of the newer saddles. I think the newer saddles are probably, a step up. I think the comfort's probably the same, but it's got a little more added perks that I don't really miss just because I'm so used to wearing that old one.
Definitely. Old trusty, right?
Yep.
There we go. I would say definitely. I have a regular fabric saddle. It's the one that I sewed, and it's incredibly comfortable. But I also have a mesh saddle, and there is a noticeable difference going back and forth. I mean, you do have that stretch with the mesh, but they do kind of both have their own place in hunting, and I do enjoy both of them, and I do wear them in separate situations, but. Yeah, there's a little bit of a noticeable difference in them if you go back and forth. I mean, from one hunt to the next, you're gonna notice it, but it's not something that you can't overcome, I guess. But yeah, no, really cool saddles, man. Really cool saddles, and I like how many different color options you offer. And like Chuck said before, the affordability factor of them, they are, I mean, way beyond what a lot of people are offering as far as price points.
Correct. Yeah, and we do that on purpose. I mean, we're not, this is definitely not a something that would provide a full-time income for me. I don't have a huge profit margin on these. If I look at the hours that I put into it, I'm probably, making close to minimum wage.
Right.
Yeah.
Really trying to help out the guys, get them into something that works and works well. And I'm happy just seeing all the, thousands of pictures people send me every year of them sitting in their saddle, they're putting their kids in it, the deer they harvest, just the gratitude makes it all worth it in my mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I have to go back and just think, Heath, what for you, I guess, from the very beginning made you think that, I should be a saddle hunter or I want to be a saddle hunter? Where did that come from? Because for us, like Austin said, this was completely foreign to us before, podcasts introduced us to it and the idea. But for you, I want to know, like, what made you a saddle guy? Were you always the type of hunter that was, more mobile, get after it, go out there and, run and gun, whatever you want to call it? I know you'd mentioned before, you kind of grew up in a era of steel hunting from fixed spots, and I think a lot of us did. So when did it click for you, and why the saddle?
I think it was more the mobility. Now that that was the original reason I got into it. There's many advantages, but to carry, before I had sticks, I carried in the screw-in steps, and I was putting screw-in steps in trees, and then putting stands up, and I didn't even have a linesman's belt, so you're hanging on steps and holding onto the tree with one hand and trying to get the a tree stand on the tree, and that progressed into the climbing stands, and then your tree selection was very limited, and you'd find places that you want to hunt, but you couldn't find the tree to get into, and then it just kind of, I guess it really set in, got back in probably, I don't know, 8-10 years ago, somewhere in there, where I had access to some hunting lands, and probably had, I don't know, a half dozen, if not more, stands set up over this area, and the owner finally was going to sell the land, and I lost the rights to hunt it, so I kind of forced me into being more mobile, and that's when I really just made the full plunge into, let's do this. I want to make myself one, and go from there. So it was almost a necessity more than wanting to, make the switch. But I am so glad that I did, because, I can't see myself ever getting in a tree stand again.
I think we share the same principle there. I know Charles a couple years ago went back from a saddle into his tree stand, and it was pretty nerve-wracking, I think, wasn't it, Chuck?
It was not a good scenario at all. The first time that I went back to actually hunting out of a lock-on stand with the safety harness, first thing I almost did was lean right off that stand. I mean, the platform. I started getting wobbly legs. I found myself just hugging the tree the whole time, facing it like I was in a saddle. It was so weird to try to go back to that platform, and it was so uncomfortable. I mean, it was a miserable, miserable hunt. I'm glad it wasn't a long hunt, because it was the last one I ever made out of a stand like that without my saddle. And even today, when I do fixed stands, whether it be a ladder stand that might be in a really good spot I hunt once or twice a year, or a lock-on, I still wear my saddle. I'm still in my saddle, whether I'm sitting on the stand traditionally or I'm standing up on it using it as a platform. I'm still in my saddle every single time.
And I've done that before also, and I've even done it so, I'm standing up on the seat,
Mm-hmm.
and hunting off the seat, standing on it in my saddle.
100%.
But yeah, I agree. I've gone back to stands, and I remember being in the dark before light, and even just sitting on the seat and just having that feeling like I'm going to fall.
Yep.
You can feel your, elevated blood pressure coming, you're sitting in the dark, and all of a sudden you feel like you're losing your balance or perspective of which way's down almost. I don't know. It's
weird.
I prefer a saddle now, and there's just, to me now, it's a comfort, I guess, a safety comfort level that I just feel so much safer in a saddle.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
There's something about being on a tight rope than having a slack rope where it's, you're going to have that impact if you do fall.
Yeah. I would have to ask, if somebody's listening to this and they've not yet tried the saddle, what would be your advice to them, kind of how to get into it, what you think would be best suiting for them, as far as the whole get up, to try to convince them that, the saddle can be beneficial to them as well?
It's a rabbit hole.
It sure is.
Obviously when you first try it, you want to be at ground height. You want to learn how to control your movements, how to maneuver around a tree, learn how to adjust your ropes, how to adjust your saddle, and all that from the ground level. Learn how to, transfer from your lineman belt to your tether, practice from the ground so you know what you're doing and you feel comfortable before you ever try going up a tree, because no matter how much you practice from the ground, that first time that you climb a tree and you do the same thing at height, it's like you're starting over again. And then when you have to do it in the dark, you're starting over again. It's definitely a learning curve. Somebody starting out, I would always recommend going with sticks and a platform. And then once you learn that, take a look at one sticking, because in my mind, that is another step up from, in my mind, that's, the ultimate way of hunting. I transitioned to one sticking probably 3 years ago, and it's to the point now that I think for the last 2 years, I think the only time that I've actually pulled sticks out and put them on a tree is when I'm giving kind of a tutorial to a customer, which I do almost, very frequently. Probably not on a weekly basis, but pretty darn close to a weekly basis. I'm meeting with somebody and showing them how to climb, how to set up, how to use the saddle, let them sit in it, let them get comfortable with it. The big advice is when you first try it, some people aren't going to like it. They're going to say, wow, this is really comfortable, but they're not going to feel comfortable in trusting the equipment. And that's the biggest hurdle anybody's got to overcome when you're starting, is learning to trust your equipment. So
I would say absolutely. That's probably one of the biggest things, is having that full confidence in it. And I think to your main point in the beginning, staying on that ground level for a while and really just kind of, resetting your tether height and just clipping on, taking off your line rope, everything, getting full comfort with your whole system is just, it's totally what you need to do from the get-go. Because like you said, as soon as you get up that tree, you're relearning everything, essentially back to square one. Because if you don't have full comfort in it and full confidence in it, the second you get up there, you're going to be scared if you don't have confidence in it. You take off that lineman's rope and you depend on that tether and you lean back for that first time. It's a little nerve-wracking, like you said, but once you get the hang of it, it's awesome. You're starting to sound like Chuck over there for a second with the one stick. He gave me a look and he's like, you, I know I'm still married to stick so bad, but the one stick's maybe in my future.
That's my primary method, probably my only method now. I don't think there's a tree that you can get in with sticks that you can't get in with a one stick. I mean, it's just, and rappelling down, it's fun.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so much safer. Rappelling down is safer than trying to climb down sticks. Yeah. The only thing I don't like about it is, yanking that rope out of the tree. That's the only thing that I wish there was a better method for, but it is what it is, and it's not that big of a deal.
I've learned some tricks to not getting your rope as stuck up there, because I've had it twice to where it didn't get stuck. I have never had to climb back up the tree in 2 seasons using the one stick, thankfully. But once in Ohio and once in Pennsylvania, both times I put my tether line just above a notch, like a notch in the tree where a branch was coming off or it split or something. Both times I put that too close to that notch, and it cost me a lot of pain and suffering for 5 minutes or so yanking on that rope. It's stunk.
I've done it one time. That's enough.
Yeah, but 99% of the times you pull it and it just comes boop right out of the tree, and it's, some of the trees, if you're lucky enough, it'll just fall straight down all the way to the bottom. But, there's not many times I'm climbing trees like that. That's your climber type trees. That might be the only one or the best one to get into. I appreciate those trees, but they are few and far between. Whatever, you're one sticking for sure. But I agree with you there. I mean, that's the only method I own currently to climb is a one stick. But in the same sense, it's not for everyone, and we've talked about this before. There needs to be a progression. Austin and I, there was a clear progression, and we did it together from the beginning of, ladder stands to climbers to sticks and a lock-on, mobile lock-on, and then from sticks to a platform and a saddle. And then for myself, I went from there to one stick, got rid of the platform, which Austin has now. And then, now I'm comfortable. I haven't changed my setup in 2 years, 2.5 years.
And there's so many times that I'll, one stick up a tree, and then, if I know I'm coming to the same spot the following morning, I'll just leave my one stick and my rope on the tree, and I'll just climb up the rope the next morning, which is very convenient.
Elaborate.
Yeah, I want you to explain that one because I was with you, and then when you said just climb up the rope, I was you lost me.
Essentially, you've got your, whatever you're using as an ascender,
Yep.
whether that's
say it's a Mad Rock Safeguard. That's what I use.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. So if you get your Mad Rock, you're going to clip that on, and then above it, you're going to clip onto the rope like a hand ascender. I actually use a chest ascender, which I can grab a hold of, and it gives me a nice firm grip around the ascender. Then I've got hanging down below that, I've got probably a 4-foot long foot sling that I'll clip onto that. So I'll slide that hand ascender up the rope that has my foot sling on it until I get my foot to about a 90-degree angle, and then I'll step up onto that foot sling, and at the same time I'm pulling the slack out of my ropeman or your Mad Rock.
Mad Rock, yep.
And then you basically sit down in the saddle and then slide up that hand ascender with the foot sling up higher, and basically SRT.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're
Right
basically
up the
doing
rope.
an SRT. Interesting.
Yeah, that just piqued his interest big time. I know.
It's quick, and the only extra gear you really need is just that, another ascender. I mean, you could do it with like a ropeman if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Something that small. I like to get something a little bit more, something that I can get my hand around and use as a hand grip also. So you're almost, as you're stepping up, you're almost, pulling with your
up.
arm a little bit too on that. Yeah, pulling yourself as well as stepping up, and then at the same time you're taking out the slack out of your bridge connection.
So one thing you might even benefit from is something my friend just showed me recently that he does, and this isn't he still climbs with the one stick, but what he does is he has a what is that knot called?
A Prosec?
Prosec knot. He has a Prosec knot on his main tether rope, and he has it up above him, and then onto that he has just like a climbing carabiner, and he runs his tag end from his Mad Rock up through the carabiner attached up above. So whenever he's pulling out slack, he's actually pulling the rope, like he's pulling from above his head down on the rope rather than pulling away from your body to release the slack. He's actually almost pulling himself up with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so he does that method, which I thought was really neat.
And I've done that too. On your hand ascender, you've got a carabiner that your foot loop is clipped into, and that same carabiner you can clip in your tag end with, so you're pulling down on that also.
You're almost pulling with both arms at that point. Yeah. Really neat method. I know last year, when I actually shot my buck, the first night I went in, I just left the rope up in the tree, tied around up at top, and I rappelled down. I took my one stick with me, and then I one stick back up, but because the rope was already in the tree and I didn't have to reset it and readjust it. Climbing back up
Correct.
The second time was so much quicker and easier. I'm like, oh my God, if I could just do this every time. But I felt like that was even easier. Man, the SRT method
As a double down.
it's almost, that's even easier yet.
I think you get two hand ascenders and you
And you don't have to advance the stick.
Right.
So-
You wouldn't have to advance the stick. You would be taking another full thing out, and you could just quickly get up the tree and in there. That is some advanced level stuff, but I like it. That's smart because one, you're still not throwing a ball up into the tree and getting tied in and anything like that. You're already tied on and good to go from hunting the night before. I like it.
Right.
I don't do it often, but there were scenarios like last year where I did it twice. One was a morning sit, and then I came back in the same spot in the afternoon, and the second one was 2 evenings in a row. And both times it should have worked out. Gave me opportunity, but it was very convenient to be able to get in and out real quick like that. So
Interesting.
yeah, good topic.
The only other advice that I'd give on that is if you do have a reflector or even a reflector push pin or something, put it on the tree, because if you're especially hunting big woods, it is very difficult to see that rope hanging down from a tree in the dark. Even if you hit it with the flashlight, it kind of blends into the tree unless it happens to be not backdropped by the tree, at which point it makes it easier to see. But if it's hanging right in front of the tree, it's very difficult to find that rope hanging down.
They even make rope with that reflective thread in it.
Yeah.
Almost. That might be something to look into.
Yeah, I don't know if they would make one. I'm sure they make something that would be the same quality you want for climbing.
Yeah.
Because I know they do it with the safety line. What's that called?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
The lifelines.
Yeah, the lifelines.
The lifelines. Yeah, those things are awesome. I never realized that, but they are like the greatest reflective rope ever when you're trying to find a tree. You cannot miss that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is so cool.
I think Spider Strap makes those
Okay.
reflective tethers.
Yeah, they're very interesting. It definitely would. That's a good advice. If you're coming back in the morning, don't think you're going to just see a rope hanging from a tree, because it is not that easy.
Especially in our area, it looks like every other grapevine hanging out.
Right. Yeah, you're not going to walk right up to your rope, put it that way. Unless you have a reflective one. That's cool, man. That was great advice. I would agree. I think we killed it for the beginner type, and somebody maybe just not truly
Committing
to it. Yeah, for sure. But I guess from there we should probably transition into maybe some hunting talk or some story talk. What do you think?
I'd like to hear a couple stories for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that we've kind of learned what you're all about and the way you saddle hunt, we want to hear some stories of when you put it into application. So if you got a good saddle hunting story for us, I think now's a good time for it.
Well, tell you what, let me transition to a bad hunting story.
Okay.
Okay.
Last year was probably the first year in a while that I did not harvest a deer. Not that I didn't have opportunities. I always tell myself, I'm going to take a doe early just to get some meat in the freezer. And I've already been instructed this year from my daughter that she wants venison. So last year, I had opportunities early on does, and it was 70 degrees outside. And I'm like, man, I don't feel like dealing with a deer in this heat. I process my own, so, not comfortable letting it hang and until I had, time to get them cut up. So I didn't harvest one early. Then came, getting closer to the rut. And then, of course, I guess my target changed. And I was in a tree in my saddle and had a group of 4 does come out behind me and kind of pass about 40 yards, directly behind me. So as I was sitting in my tree, I decided I was going to turn around and just watch them and see if anything was, maybe coming up behind them. And so as I turned around, I let some slack out of my rope to make it easier to kind of spin around. So I let some slack out of my rope and then pulled my tether down across my chest in front of me. And of course, letting out a little slack in the tether makes it easier to spin around and stand with your back against the tree.
Yep.
And so I sat there for about 5 minutes and heard something behind me, turned around, and here's a doe with a buck, a very nice buck. I mean, respectable for Michigan. It was probably a 120-inch buck, 8-point, decent mass to him. And of course, they were now coming up right where I thought they were going to be, but I was turned around in the tree. So I quickly spun around, grabbed my bow, and they were still coming, basically running right up to me, and they ran up the tree on my weak side and stopped right underneath me. So I'm spun around now. Of course, I'm almost sitting down low in the saddle because I let slack out of my tether.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to make the movement to get myself back up where I could spin. So I decided, well, I'm just going to bring my bow over my tether and take that weak side shot in that direction. Of course, by this time, that buck was almost directly below me on my weak side. I made the transition and got my bow over, and I don't know if you have ever tried that shot. I don't think I have ever practiced that shot where I'm sitting down low in my saddle and shooting almost directly down at this point. But I put the bow in his direction, and I could not pull that bow back because of the position. You know, I was all kind of twisted up in the saddle. I thought, crap, what am I going to do now? I wish I had never turned around because I was originally with my back against the tree. I would have been in an absolute perfect position to take that shot. And of course, that was too much movement. I've got a doe and a buck standing almost right underneath me. And so I watched him, and that buck turned and walked directly away from me and never gave me another shot. As he was walking away, I finally got turned around again. At that point in time, you know, short of shooting him in the ass, I had no shot on him at all. And I was desperately trying to figure out how I could stop him, how I could turn him. I made some baws, some little doe bleats at him, trying to get him to at least turn his head or turn his neck, and he never did. He just was on a beeline straight away from me, heading right towards those 4 does that I was watching earlier. So I was very disappointed. So that's a downfall, I guess, with hunting out of a saddle, is especially if you get, you know, twisted up in your ropes where, you know, you anticipate a direction they're coming and they come the other side of the tree and you've already committed to, you know, a shot placement, and then you've got to try to make those adjustments, especially getting over to your weak side, which is he was on at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was my only opportunity to buck all year. I had,
What a bummer.
I saw several others, but nothing within shooting range. So
Man.
Yeah. I like the honesty and the reality of that, because that happened to me once on a doe. A very similar story. I was hunting with a buddy, and he was supposed to be filming for me, and I was off the wrong side of the tree, the side I did not want to be on for the saddle, but I set him up on the good side because he only had a climber, and it was right for a climber. So of course these deer come in, and one come in behind me, and I twisted, you know, straight back for a straight behind me shot, nice and comfortable, no problem. But the tree, the way it was actually leaned towards me. So my gravity was already kind of pulling me a little bit extra away from the tree. And sure enough, that first deer that came through was a little button buck, and I didn't want to shoot it. I'm like, oh no. So I fully committed on this deer. It's a button buck, passes it like 10 yards. And I look back, and here comes the mom coming out, like big mature doe coming out from the other side, which is now would be my weak side. And she's kind of caught me because I'm hanging off the tree real hard. I'm, you know, full goober mode set up on this one deer, not really realizing that there was even another deer there. She comes out, kind of busts me, but keeps coming in. She just flicks her tail, pretends I'm not really a threat to her, because at this point I'm just a tangled up mess up in the tree. It's same thing. I had to like grab my rope, pull myself, get twisted back around, fight gravity, and then bow over my tether line over the bridge to try to shoot that weak shot, that weak side shot. And the same thing you're mentioning, I was kind of low, weak side, and I went to take the shot. I did get the bow back. It was very hard. I kind of had to like draw and then turn towards her. And after all that mess, she stood there at like 25 yards, I think she was. and I let the arrow go, and it hits a branch and deflects like 3 feet over her back, and
Oh,
she
no.
took off running. I was like, you gotta be kidding me after all that. And that was like the first and only experience my one buddy had with saddles, and he was just dying laughing because I was twisted all over, and I'm like trying to explain to him, like, dude, this is not an ideal scenario. I would have never set up here. I would never set up this way, you know. But, you know, since you were here with me and we were in the same tree, I kind of, you know, let you have the comfortable sit, even though I was the shooter. But the second time we went out this past year, and he's actually might be, our buddy Booer might be interested in
I figured
saddle now.
that's who it was. Good. Get him in
Yeah.
a saddle. That'd be perfect.
He's still running like a little climber, and thing is just so noisy.
I'll never touch another climber ever again.
No, I gave mine away, so I would never touch one again.
Yeah.
But
No, that might be something to think about though. That low, you know, sitting almost that real low, extra slack shot, trying to, you know, account for it a little bit.
I think it's the main reason why I'm adding this year even with the one stick, I think I'm going to add a platform to my arsenal when needed, just for a little bit more real estate moving around for some of them awkward, weird shots. Or I also have some of those Bowman outdoor steps.
Oh yeah.
That I'm going to try as well. Put one on each side of the one stick, kind of give me a little bit more leverage. In the past, I've done that with some kind of little stick or step, like the Wild Edge steps, and I really liked it. So I don't know if that's something you do when you're one sticking, or if you just, because last year I didn't use anything but just the one stick, and I was comfortable enough I could do that.
Yeah, I do carry two single steps. They're rope steps. They're probably 25-year-old Cranford steps that I carry 2 of them with me. Then I usually put one almost on the opposite side of the tree from my one stick platform, just to give me one foothold on the opposite side of the tree.
Smart.
I haven't heard Cranford since John Eberhart. He loves those Cranford steps, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another old Michigan boy.
Yeah.
Did Eberhard ever play any role in kind of, I don't know, like as you were thinking of saddle hunting, did he ever play any role in your process?
No, not really. But interesting thought. I had many discussions with Joe, his son.
Okay.
And, over the course of those discussions, I, found out that he is a neighbor of mine at my place up north.
Cool.
Literally a 2-minute walk from my house to his.
Really neat.
So
small world, huh?
Yeah.
both have a place on the same lake, and
Very cool.
small world, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
So one last question I'll leave you with, and then maybe we'll get into a positive story, since we can't let you go without a good story. But one thing that we want to touch on this as well, we want to give you a moment just to kind of brag about yourself a little bit, but we want to know what you think is the one thing, and we kind of cover this, but what sets your saddle apart from the rest on the market today?
I would probably say affordability, comfort, and minimalistic and fully functional. And I don't know if
Beautiful.
minimalistic and fully functional can be used in the same sentence or not, but I think they're both accurate descriptions.
I love it.
I'll take it.
No, I love it. Absolutely. I would agree with you tenfold.
Absolutely. I can't let our listeners get away without hearing I don't want to say a positive story, because that other one was positive as a learning experience.
True.
But I wanna ask you, it's kind of one of the questions that we ask all of our guests, but what's your most memorable story? Like, what's your favorite hunting story of all time?
My favorite hunting story of all time is probably, I guess it's going back 5 years ago. It was during gun season, actually. It was the middle of the day, and I decided to take a walk out to the truck and grab a bite to eat. Came out of the woods, took a slow walk, through the woods, keeping my eyes open, got out to the truck, grabbed a bite to eat, and just started to walk back into the the woods and sat down. I was hunting with the 450 Bushmaster, which I'm not sure if Pennsylvania is one of the straight wall cartridge states, but Michigan is. So it's one very popular straight wall cartridge. And walking across actually a field, and 265 yards away, a coyote came out in the middle of the day running across the field and sat down in the middle of the field. So I jumped down into prone position and took a shot with that 450 Bushmaster at 265 yards and literally held it right on he was sitting down facing me, held it right on his nose, and it dropped about 9 inches and right through the middle of his chest is where it hit and dropped him on the spot. So
Oh man.
I gathered him up and decided to, well, didn't decide to. I was always planning to hunt, so gathered him up and went out to the woods and sat down, and within probably 2 hours I had it was 11 point, 135 inch buck come by and dropped him. So ended up coming home with a very nice buck and a coyote all in the same evening, which isn't something that most can say has happened to them, but probably one of my most memorable hunts.
Absolutely, I would say so. That is a poke with a 450
Yeah.
Bushmaster. That's a really long shot with that gun.
That is crazy. I know some of the guys, and we're not a straight wall cartridge here, but Ohio is, and of course, you know, a lot of guys, it's very popular there. I know it's starting to get popular in different states as well, but a couple of our buddies use them as like their brush push guns, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
You know, when you're doing deer drives and whatnot, that's a very popular brush gun, push gun that we see guys run with. We're familiar, but man, that is impressive.
That's a
day.
good story too.
Yeah, what a day.
They're actually very accurate. I mean, I had practiced out to 300 yards with that gun, so I knew it was more than capable. I know at 300 yards, I feel very capable of making a killing shot with it. So it's
That's awesome.
For a straight wall cartridge. It's a very nice gun.
It's a hard one to beat. And again, it's a coyote, so I don't care if he's 400. I'm going to send one after him, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't think I'd ever have that opportunity, so don't come beating down my doors for saying I'll shoot 400 yards at a coyote. But, you know, it is a coyote. I've shot some with my bow. I've shot Adam with my gun. And I've missed the same shots you're talking about. But, you know, that makes for one heck of a great way to end this, I guess. Heath, again, much appreciated you coming on. We got to thank you tenfold. And is there anything we're missing? Anything you want to add on to the end of this one about, you know, H2 or anything at all?
No, I thank you guys for having me. I enjoyed it. It's been nice having a little campfire talk. It's very enjoyable. Wish you guys the best.
Oh, that's cool.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It's been fun.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on and taking time out of your night. Before we let you go, though, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? Your website, social media, all that fun stuff.
You know, if you search H2 Saddles, our website is h2saddles.com. H2 Saddles on Facebook, Instagram. Trying to think what else. We'll pop up under the Google for H2 Saddles.
Perfect.
H2saddles.com is our website. That'll give you hopefully all the information you need. See our inventory. We've got not only saddles, but we've got one sticks, some sticks also, aiders, other paraphernalia on our website. So
beautiful. Well, thanks again for coming on.
Well, thank you guys.